Fiat Tipo Cross combines lifestyle looks with the option of the brand's latest and very sophisticated hybrid 48-volt engine. It's an unusual confection, but at the right price, it could have some appeal.
Cutting-edge hybrid technology might well price the family hatchback you have in mind out of reach, but possibly not if the car you have in mind is a Fiat Tipo. In SUV-style cross form, this model can offer you a very clever electrified engine indeed, and a bit of a crossover vibe into the bargain. High technology and lifestyle looks have never previously been things you'd associated with this sensible Fiat. Tipo history goes all the way back to 1988, and this current version has been on sale since 2015. A far-reaching facelift was introduced in 2020, with the range initially restructured around a single 1-litre petrol engine. More recently, in early 2022, the lineup's been slimmed down to a 5-door hatch body shape, and a 1.5-litre hybrid 48-volt petrol engine option has been added to the range for cross customers. Obviously, this cross model's SUV demeanour is only for show. Even light trails are really beyond its remit. And on tarmac, the smart styling won't disguise the fact that this is some way from being the sharpest handling car in its sector. But we reckon it's close enough to the class leaders to satisfy most potential buyers. This cross hybrid 48-volt variant's 1.5-litre unit puts out 130 horsepower and 240 Nm of torque, rests to 62 miles an hour in 9.3 seconds, and is mated to a 7-speed dual-clutch auto transmission. The propulsion system includes a built-in 48-volt, 15 kilowatt, 20 horsepower electric motor delivering 55 Nm of torque, which can propel the wheels even when the internal combustion engine is turned off. A bit of clarification is needed here, because in the family hatch segment, the word hybrid can mean two very different things. Contenders in this class tend to be divided as to whether they should offer mild hybrid tech, affordable but rather ineffective as used by the Focus, Golf, Leon and Octavia, or a self-charging full hybrid, Prius-like engine, the sort of thing you get in the Toyota Corolla, which is pricier but better able to provide the kind of economy that owners used to get from the diesel unit Fiat no longer offers in this car. In a stroke of shared Stellantis Group engineering innovation, Fiat has decided to try and provide the best of both with the 1.5-litre 48-volt hybrid petrol unit we just mentioned. An engine it only offers to customers wanting this lifestyle-orientated cross-body style. In reality, it's probably best to view this hybrid powertrain, shared with Jeep's Renegade and Compass models and Alfa Romeo's Tonale, as a mild hybrid package with a few extra tricks up its sleeve. The fact that it's based around a belt starter generator which drives the engine's stop-start system suggests that, as does the fairly unremarkable set of overall efficiency stats. These might make you wonder whether it's really worth paying the extra for this 130 horsepower, 4-cylinder, 48-volt hybrid power plant rather than a much more affordable, unelectrified 1-litre conventional unit we're trying here. An engine that's lighter, simpler and, as we said, exclusively available with a manual gearbox that most Tipo folks still want. Nevertheless, if you're planning to spend a bit more on your Tipo, Fiat wants to convince you that a hybrid version is the route you should take. And there's certainly enough cleverness with the technology on offer to suggest that its benefits ought to be great. That cleverness starts with the way the engineers have situated the hybrid system's 20 horsepower electric motor in the gearbox, rather than on the rear axle where it would usually be with a hybrid. Provision of that electric motor means that unlike with an ordinary mild hybrid engine, this one can drive the car on electric power alone. Though because the 48-volt battery that's being charged is tiny, just 0.8 kilowatts per hour in size, only at very slow speeds and only for a few hundred yards. It actually does so in lots of ways, and the Fiat and its Jeep partner have decided to give names for all of them. Silent start is when you prod the start button and the car springs into life, but the engine doesn't. E-launch is where the electric motor pushes you off for the first few metres before the engine quickly springs in to help. E-creeping uses electric power where a conventional petrol auto would creep forward on tick over. E-queuing will keep your battery powered in stop-start heavy traffic, and e-parking will use electric power at parking speeds. If there's any battery charge still left over after all of this, by the time you get to the open road, e-boosting will use it to help acceleration. And to help recharge said battery, recuperated energy is reclaimed when you brake. You can probably guess what that's called: e-braking. It seems like an awful lot of effort to go to for the creation of something that, at the end of the day, isn't quite as good as the kind of self-charging full hybrid engine we've now had on cars of this size for the last 2 decades. It does, though, make the Tipo hybrid 48V feel like the proper hybrid it's pretending to be when setting off. Manoeuvring and inching along in traffic queues, all of which is accomplished in impressive EV silence. Away from walking pace though, the slightest flex of your right foot introduces the 130 horsepower engine, not always very subtly, and the electronics can sometimes get themselves a little confused as to whether fossil fuel or battery propulsion is required for any given command. For example, the need for a quick burst of acceleration to nip into a gap in traffic, leading to a delay in response. The dual clutch gearbox is smooth, but not responsive enough to ever make the car feel in any way rapid. Officially, the rest to 62 miles an hour time is 9.3 seconds, on the way to 124 miles an hour. The Tipo's road-going demeanour has been set up to favour relaxed comfort, rather than any kind of dynamic drive. You can see why. This is, after all, a car designed primarily around the needs of buyers in developing countries who simply want to get comfortably from A to B. So there's no trick suspension for fancy ride quality, torque vectoring for classy cornering, or ridiculously powerful engine options that hardly anyone will buy. Where Touring has had modern carryover technology it can use, the engines, the modular platform, the Uconnect infotainment technology, then that's been thrown into the development mix. But the overriding priority here has been in the creation of the best possible car for the lowest possible price. You'd certainly notice this cross variant as being a little different. It'll have to be a hatch because the UK importers have decided not to continue offering the Tipo SW Estate body style here, which is a pity because the Estate variant suited the crossbody styling package quite nicely. This hatch version does its best though. Thanks to the cross package, this variant gets silver plastic skid plate style panels at the front and rear and along the bottom of the side seals. Roof rails also make the kit list, as do smart 17-inch alloy wheels. At the rear, the tailgate angle is rather more upright than the tapering roofline leads you to expect. Practicality obviously being paramount. You get a bee sting style aerial and the boomerang shaped rear lamps, LED illuminated above base trim, curving from the sides into a boot panel dominated by that large Fiat badge. On this cross version, another silver skid plate features further down, flanked by red reflectors. Of course, as usual, what's more important is the stuff you can't see. Under the skin lies the so-called small-wide LWB version of the modular platform that Fiat originally co-developed with General Motors for its family cars. Underpinnings shared most closely in the form they're used here by Stellantis Group products like the Jeep Renegade and the Fiat 500L. Time to take a look inside. If the backstory behind this car leads you to expect a cabin with all the sophistication of an Albanian thrift store, then you might actually be quite pleasantly surprised by what's on offer here. Yes, of course it lacks the sophistication of a Volkswagen Golf and the trendy touches of, say, a Peugeot 308, but as we've been pointing out throughout this film, both of those cars cost thousands more. You might feel the need to be critical if you've shelled out for a top-spec version like this one. Aside from the soft plastic used on the fascia top, hard scratchy plastic features almost everywhere else. We don't think you'll be impressed by the shiny top door cards, the cheap-feeling silver door catches, or even the gear knob, which is stitched with something pretending to be leather that feels more like plastic. Still, despite all of this, you limit yourself to more affordable variant and manage your expectations. We don't think you should be grousing too much given the prices being asked here. Especially in this updated model, which has gained a more ergonomic leather-stitched 3-spoke steering wheel and an Alfa Romeo-derived air conditioning controls now embellished with smart chrome and black inserts. As before, this is one of the most spacious cabins in the class. Well, in theory anyway. The central ceiling ridge rather robs the cabin of the roomy feel the dimension measurements suggest it really ought to have. On the plus side, unusually for a car of this price, you get lumbar supports, electrically adjustable no less, provided you avoid base trim. Also unusual in a car of this kind is space to rest your left foot when it's not working the clutch pedal. That's provided here. Fiat has also dealt with several of the things we criticised about the original version of this cabin. One of our issues concerned the cheap looking analogue dials, now replaced by this 7-inch configurable TFT screen. We feared that this Tipo might have borrowed the complicated digital instrument setup from its cousin, the Jeep Compass. But this is a different, simpler and easier to understand setup based around a central screen flanked by crescent-shaped light bands for revs on the left and fuel on the right. The configurable middle bit of the layout isn't large enough to show sat-nav mapping, but it can show quite a lot else. Usually a speedometer, but also, if you press these steering spoke buttons, a trip computer, audio settings or nav instructions. And there's a useful vehicle info section with service info, tyre pressures, coolant and oil temp and battery charge info. Our other issue with the original version of this second generation model lay with its central infotainment screen. With the early models, that was tiny, just 5 inches in size. This improved replacement Uconnect touch display isn't massive, has a 7-inch screen, but it's a big improvement, though still far too cluttered and complicated compared to the crisp, simple monitors you'd get in, say, a Volkswagen Group model. Pressing Uconnect on this lower band of shortcut options gets you the home screen, with its trip, radio, media, phone, settings, compass and audio options. You get navigation too. The system does of course offer Bluetooth and a decent quality DAB tuner, and it works with a downloadable Uconnect live app that allows you to stream your favourite music with Deezer and tune in. Keep abreast of the news on Reuters and catch up with your friends on Facebook, Check-in and Twitter. As for practical touches, well, Fiat reckons that there's around 12 litres of stowage space around the front of this cabin, and most of the areas provided certainly seem to be of a decent size. Below the ventilation dials at the bottom of the centre stack that we mentioned earlier, you get a deep shelf that's perfect for stowing your phone handset, including, as it does, a 12-volt socket, plus a USB-A point. Further back, 2 cup holders sit alongside the conventional handbrake, and behind these lies an armrest concealing another deep stowage box. There's also an open cubby by the driver's right knee and a reasonably sized glove box. The compartmentalised door pockets aren't quite so generously proportioned though. Fiat has forgotten not only an overhead sunglasses compartment, but even ticket clips in the sun visors. As for all-round visibility, well, that's fine at the front, but thick rear pillars and the small rear screen restrict your over-the-shoulder view, so it's just as well the rear parking sensors come as standard, providing you avoid entry-level trim. Cross models get a park view rear view camera too. Time to take a seat in the back. The rear compartment, accessible via these wide opening doors that'll make it easier to lean in with things like child seats. Get in yourself and you'll find that this is another area of the cabin that's a little more spacious than the segment norm, with plenty of room for legs, knees, shoulders and heads. In the class, few rivals are equally accommodating when it comes to taking 3 adults across the back seat, so it's slightly annoying that the bench here hasn't been sculpted to allow a middle-seated occupant to perch upon it in any degree of comfort. If there are only 2 of you, you'll be able to use the central armrest, which only comes fitted to this top cross variant and is the smallest we've ever seen. So small that it can't accommodate the usual cup holders. The glassy design avoids the claustrophobic feel that afflicts back seat folk in some cars in this class, and basic storage comes courtesy of rather compact door bins and these pockets in the front seat backs. Plus there's a coat hook in the overhead driver's side grab handle, a coin recess in the door pulls and, in this top cross version, a useful central USB-A port. Finally, let's take a look at the boot space on offer. Another area where the Tipo enjoys an advantage over most of its competitors. With the back seats occupied, there's 440 litres of cargo room in this hatch. To give you some perspective on that, a Volkswagen Golf hatch offers 380 litres, while a Ford Focus hatch weighs in with only 341 litres to window level. We miss the old Tipo SW Estate body shape that's no longer offered, not only because of its extra space, but also because it alone offered an adjustable height boot floor, something that would be really useful in this car. It's quite a high loading lip height, but at least there's space beneath the floor for this full-size spare wheel, though, unfortunately, you have to pay extra for it. The cargo area is wider than it initially looks, thanks to these left and right recesses, so things like pushchairs and collapsible cots should easily fit in. You also get bag hooks on either side and a dim light on the left. Fold the 60-40 split rear bench forward and around 1,300 litres of total space will be freed up. Fiat knows it will have to price this car competitively if it's to make any real sales impact at all with it. It's rather more debatable whether you'd want to pay nearly £28,000 for one, which is the sum required for the 130 horsepower hybrid 48-volt DDCT auto model. At those kind of figures, Fiat will still need to make sure that this car is very well specified, and has. All Cross models gets Fiat's Cross styling pack, which includes silver roof rails, skid plates, front and rear special wheel arches. Cross spec also throws in a rear seat armrest, a park view rear camera, height adjustment for the front seats, and, for those in the rear, a central armrest and a USB port. Opt for a Cross with Fiat's hybrid engine and you get keyless entry and heated front seats too. And a fairly well kitted out cabin too, with keyless entry, automatic climate control, a reversing camera, adaptive cruise control, a 7-inch digital instrument cluster screen, heated front seats and intelligent speed assist. Connectivity is covered off by a 7-inch central touchscreen with satellite navigation, Bluetooth, USB ports and a DAB tuner. That's covered the standard equipment levels. The affordable asking prices though might well leave you some scope for adding in a few well-chosen extra cost options. If that's the case, you want some guidance on what Fiat offers through its Mopar accessories division. If you want to personalise your Tipo, there are special key covers. You could upgrade to larger 18-inch bi-colour sport alloy wheels, and you can get silver covers for the exterior mirrors. Practical touches include packs that strap onto the back of the front seats so that those in the rear can make the most of work or leisure time as they travel. There's a coat hanger option to fit in the same place too. For the boot, there are cargo nets and a cargo area tray. For the cabin, you might want to add a backseat hammock-style cover for pets and all-weather floor mats. For the outside, you can specify roof rails that allow you to fit ski racks and a roof box. And of course, you can pay extra for a tow bar. You also need to find extra £250 for a spare wheel. Finally, let's have a look at the safety equipment provided to Tipo buyers. If your Fiat salesperson wants to justify this car's considerable increase in price since its 2016 launch, here is where he or she will start. At its original introduction, this car had no standard camera safety equipment at all. Now, all variants get brake control, Fiat's autonomous emergency brake system, which you can adjust for sensitivity via the central screen. You also get lane control warning, Fiat's lane support system, which alerts you if you drift out of lane on the highway. There's also traffic sign assist, which reads road signs as you pass and displays them on the dash. This particular setup is of the intelligent sort, so it can combine with the car's speed limiter to automatically restrict your Tipo speed as you drive, according to posted limits. That, in theory, should mean you need never get a speeding ticket again. Attention assist, Fiat's driver drowsiness monitoring system, also makes the team sheet, able to alert you if your reactions suggest you're beginning to feel drowsy at the wheel. There are no further optional safety features, but if you opt for the hybrid version of this top Cross model, then Fiat will include its blind spot assist system, which will alert you if you're about to dangerously pull out in front of another vehicle. That's all in addition, of course, to the passive safety features that Tipo has always had. As you'd have a right to expect in this day and age, all variants come fitted out with driver, passenger, side and curtain airbags, ABS anti-lock brakes and ESC electronic stability control. There's also a tyre pressure monitoring system and a hill holder clutch that stops the car from rolling backwards when pulling away on steep inclines. On to cost of ownership. Let's get to the WLTP figures. This is the first Fiat hybrid that uses the electric motor by completely disconnecting the petrol engine, which can remain idle for up to 47% at the time according to the total WLTP cycle. In the urban cycle alone, the percentage rises to 62%. Ultimately, this 4-cylinder 1.5 litre 130 horsepower power plant delivers a kind of compromise between the kind of electrified mainstream engines that competitors in this sector offer. Either mild hybrid units that don't deliver much efficiency benefit, or self-charging full hybrid power plants that do but cost a lot more. Sure enough, the tax determining CO2 emissions stats of the Tipo 48-volt hybrid up to 119 grams per kilometre of CO2 sits somewhere between these two approaches. For comparison, a mild hybrid Ford Focus 1-litre EcoBoost 125 PS power shift manages 122 grams per kilometre, while a full hybrid Toyota Corolla 1.8 VVTi returns 102 grams per kilometre. Dig a bit deeper though, and the readings don't look so good from Fiat's point of view. Its 48-volt hybrid tech may be supposedly more sophisticated than what you'd get in a mild hybrid engine, but the combined fuel cycle figures don't suggest that. A Tipo 48-volt hybrid returns a combined fuel consumption reading of up to 54.3 miles per gallon, which is exactly the same figure that you get from a supposedly less sophisticated mild hybrid Volkswagen Golf 1-litre ETSI DSG. And of course, it's way off what you get from the kind of self-charging full hybrid model in this segment that you could have for not far off the kind of money Fiat wants for a Tipo 48-volt hybrid. That Toyota Corolla 1.8 VVTi hybrid, for instance, which manages up to 62.8 miles per gallon on the combined cycle. What else? Every model in the range is covered by a 3-year unlimited mileage warranty, the third year taken care of by the dealer, and there's 36 months of breakdown cover included as well. Should you have a problem on a journey, you can use the Uconnect infotainment system to contact roadside assistance, and the same setup can also be used to book routine services that will come up every 18,000 miles or every 12 months, depending on which comes round soonest. That servicing needn't be too costly as Fiat parts are relatively cheap. The brand also offers fixed price service plans that take care of all service charges, labour and replacement fluids. You can pick from durations that span from 1 to 5 years with corresponding mileage from 9,000 to 45,000 miles. You won't be expecting too much when it comes to residual value, and you shouldn't. A retained value of 31% after 3 years and 36,000 miles of use is pretty near the bottom of the class. Insurance Group 22 for the hybrid 48 volt. When the Tipo Cross first arrived in 2020, we struggled to see why you might want one. Crossover-like versions of family hatchbacks usually demonstrate the manufacturer concern's lack of properly developed, comparably sized SUV, as here. But this one had the advantage of at least being sensibly priced. Adding into it, the hybrid 48-volt engine you'd ideally want in this Tipo Cross adds a much-needed reason for purchase. But it also dilutes the strong value proposition we just referenced. If you can somehow get yourself the hybrid 48-volt version of this car at a price that's right, we could see why you might want one. As ever, it all comes down to the bottom line.